And no matter where I was, people wanted to talk about pleasure. They were like, condoms. Yeah. But how do I eat her ass? How do I do this thing? How do I do whatever? And I'm like, I get it. You want to know how to do the thing.
You're listening to the Laughing Couple podcast with your hosts, Brittany and Ryan Ostafy. Join them weekly as they discuss topics such as relationships, kids, sex, parenting, all unfiltered and all with a healthy dose of laughter. Please welcome your hosts, Brittany and Ryan Ostafy.
Oh, look at that. Look at that. So brilliantly synced.
Oh my goodness.
I'm getting so good at this clap.
I feel like, okay, so we have Luna, like we were talking about. Luna, how are you?
I am so good. I'm so sex-cited.
Oh my God. I love that.
Sex-cited.
Next time we're going to be in the bedroom, Ryan's going to be like, hey, I'm sex-cited for tonight.
I have never heard that term, and I can guarantee you I'm going to use that term.
Overuse it,
on a daily basis. I am sex-cited.
I love it. Oh, I guess I also want to say your last name, Luna Matatas. Like, yes. That's the coolest last name.
It's so fun. It's so fun to say.
I do love it. Awesome. Okay, so Luna,
I'm not going to do it.
We've already did a little background on you, but
I'm not going to do it.
Can you
do it?
Oh God.
I'm not going to do it.
Sorry, I enabled that.
Don't make me sing. Don't make me sing.
We have already done a little intro to you, but can you just tell our listeners what you're up to, like kind of right now? Because we are going to get into the dirty of it all. But yeah, let us know like what you're doing right now, because people know your background, but like what are you up to?
Yeah, I'm so lucky because I get to come into people's lives to talk with them about pleasure, sex, relationships, dating, body image. So I'm teaching a lot of things still online, which is also amazing because I get to reach so many different audiences. Yeah. And I'm developing new things all the time. So I'm at about 35 different topics that I teach. But, you know, you learn something new with every audience. So I get to keep growing, which is cool.
Okay, so real quick, how did you or when did you kind of think like this is like an avenue that I'd like to pursue? Because I feel like this story is I always like to know how and why people got into like the sex road. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I almost said sex industry.
Yeah.
The sex industry. Kind of.
It is.
It is, but like I just
in a roundabout way.
You know what I mean?
We're like sex adjacent to that industry, I guess. Yeah.
I like it. It's a kitty corner wait, no, that's a terrible reference. Okay, it's fine.
Yeah, maybe not kitty corner. I was living with my parents outside of Toronto in the suburbs. And then one day I saw this workshop for G-spots. And I was like, I don't know what a G-spot is, but I'm going to take 2 buses and a subway and I'm going to find out. And I ended up at Toronto's feminist sex shop, good for her. And I was watching this person teach in a way that was so open, so vulnerable. People in the room also didn't know what things were. And I learned so much in those 2 hours about my body that I had not even knew existed through our high school sex ed. So I went into sexual health communications and public health and doing kind of talking about condoms. And, you know, I was working in Eastern and Southern Africa. I worked all over Canada. And no matter where I was, people wanted to talk about pleasure. They were like, condoms. Yeah. But how do I eat her ass? How do I do this thing? How do I do whatever? And I'm like, I get it. You want to know how to do the thing.
I was not prepared for that.
And too early for us. Welcome to my morning.
I love it.
What did you guys talk about today? Well, let me tell you. Yeah. No, so I'm so sorry. I just wasn't prepared for that. I'm now back.
I know. I should start warmer.
No.
Please
dive right in.
We like the cold. We like the cold plunge. We're into that right now.
So I wanted to offer those spaces myself. And so I started working with the people who were already doing it. And I've just been thriving because this is what people really want. They want to know how to do the thing, how to do it confidently, how to get out of their head, how to make time for pleasure, how to let go of all this self-judgment that gets in the way.
Right. Oh,
I can't wait. Well, no shock here. If you've listened to this podcast, you know that I'm like jonesing out of this conversation. Before we get into the deep dive, we do a segment called I Love You and You're Annoying. And you do have a partner. And we know that you love your partner and care deeply about your partner. And we are very interested to know where that partner annoys you.
So my partner is someone who will say he's really good at communication. He can easily speak up about his needs, but I always have to ask him twice. So I can't trust his yes because his no doesn't come as easily. This annoys me because I'm the same. And so I can see it mirroring in me that I also, my first instinct is a people pleasing or like whatever you want kind of vibe. But I do have like a truth to contribute. So it's annoying because I can see how it makes the other person feel.
We've never ever got that. And that's very interesting.
We have received in our own household where I'll say yes, but I wasn't listening.
Yeah. That's totally different.
That's like, yeah, for sure.
Like, you ready for this thing that you committed to? What are you talking about? Yeah, it's not the same. That's a very, very interesting perspective. And it's very like intuitive of you to be like, it bothers me because I also do it. Like that's a people pleaser thing. I could probably think of 3 friends who do the exact same thing. Just because like I know that they're yes. I'm like, okay. Like I say like, oh yeah, is this person coming? And then I'm like, well, she says she is, but realistically, I don't know. Like I'm going to have to ask her a couple more times.
One of my closest and deepest friends, I won't use his name, but if he's listening, he knows it's him, says yes to everything.
Oh,
and he doesn't just say yes. He says yes with the most enthusiastic yes, like, oh my God, that's gonna be amazing, can't wait to do it. And then I'll call him
1,000%.
and he's like, oh, is that this weekend? I'm like, yeah. He's like, I've made plans.
Can't come.
I'm like,
busy.
Okay.
Booked this 2 years ago.
It's like,
I love that.
pretty sure you were like super confident. You got a tattoo that says can't wait to be there. Then now you are not there. But yeah, no, that's funny.
A good one. That's a good one.
Okay. So let's dive into this, shall we? A lot of the stuff that you talk about and a lot of the stuff that we talk about is generally around the communication channels. So pleasure, fantasy, expectations, all of that are about communication. So we'll spend some time talking about the communication because it's the foundation for everything. But then we want to get into like the real nitty gritty stuff, if that's okay with you. So with respect to communication, a lot of the stuff that you talk about is one partner wanting something from the relationship that they might not be getting today. How do we navigate that conversation?
I was going to, no, it's fine. I'm going to let her talk and then, no, I was just going to be like more specifically, like, let's throw out an example. Say a partner has like a very big interest in like a specific kink, right? Like maybe they're into BDSM and the other partner's like, oh, I'm a little scared. How would you suggest that that partner approaches this conversation to both have the outcome that they want and not to like offend your partner, right? Because it's kind of like, well, I'm not doing that. So are you not happy?
And not only that, but when they don't know what the other partner is going to say, there's a vulnerability that obviously comes with that too, right?
You hit on all the things that I think prevent people from even talking about stuff or asking about it. This vulnerability, this what if they say this? What if they think of me differently if I ask for this thing? And I think a lot of times people kind of come home and they get the courage to say something to their partner about a desire, and it comes out as a request for an activity. Okay. So can you spank me? Can you, tie me up? Can you do this? Or can I do this to you? And that's a lot of pressure because your partner might not have the skills. Your partner might not understand what your connection to the arousal is in it. So a better way is to get curious about both people's desires. So, babe, can we talk about our fantasies? What are you into these days? Is there something you've never tried, but you masturbate about or you think about? So this approach of curiosity without obligation usually makes people feel more disarmed. And then they can say, okay, you know what? I don't know how I feel about that, but I can go off and like read about it, learn about it, see if I have a connection to it. And it allows people to tell a story about their fantasy. So if you told me that you wanted me to spank you, I would say, okay, well, with what? In what position? What do you want to feel? Do you want to feel naughty, playful, punished, rewarded, pain? That's like 8 different things that you could experience from one fantasy. So someone might hear spanking and then kind of envision whatever porn they've seen about it, which is usually really sensationalized, really extreme, very stereotypical, and not how people actually do the thing. So it becomes an intimidating request instead of a curious conversation.
I know that when that book 50 Shades of Grey came out, literally every woman jumped onto that book. Yeah. And it was almost like this awakening of a different level of sexual pleasure that women were seeking. And I can tell you firsthand as a man who's kind of square in this space. I'll be honest with you. When you first started talking about it, tying up, I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, because for me, it did two things. It meant to me that what we were doing wasn't enough. And then the other side of it was, I love this person. I care for this person. The last thing I want to do is be physical with this person. And sex to me is intimate. It's not rough. And so to your point, the only experience I ever had was porn. And I associated what she was talking about to pornographic
with the most
videos.
Extreme version
Of literally tying her up. And I know there's a world where that exists, but to go from our sex life to that world, I was like, I don't know how I fit in here.
And that's why you don't assume.
So if you're a partner, if you're a partner and you are, we'll stick with the BD, is it BDSM?
Yes, it is.
We'll stick in that category. I want to go in another direction, let's be honest, but we'll stick in this category. For instance, if you are the partner that wants to experience this, would you suggest doing some of this to yourself first? Because I think if you've never done it, it would make sense that when I ask you the question, do you want pain? Do you want this? Do you want that? You might not even know how to answer that question. You just want something that looks like that.
Yes, you can absolutely try learning about it yourself so that you can tell a bigger story. So thinking about your masturbation fantasies around this. People usually just don't masturbate to spanking. They're thinking about, and then I was bent over her knee and then I was doing this. And there's like a whole story because our erotic imagination is the biggest fuel. And that needs more. It needs interest. It has nothing to do with satisfaction. It's just curious and growing. And for a lot of people, the idea of doing something super rough or even just in contrast to what they're already experiencing feels like there's some kind of meaning behind it, or there's like we're bringing real world roughness into a consensual, erotic rough space. So I think a lot of times starting with things with your partner where you can add on to what you're already comfortable with. So if you're already comfortable with oral and you want to try bondage, what if you just had your hands under your bum and so they weren't available to you while your partner was going down on you? So you can feel right. So there's no equipment, there's no knots, there's no where's the handcuffs key. It's really just about playing with sensation because kink is just all sensations. Any kinds of contrast to sensations, what we decide are vanilla and what we decide are kinky is just random. It's just we just decide, this is what normal sex looks like now, and this is what kinkier sex looks like. But our body, when you go for a massage, if some people like that like deep tissue, like bruise you massage, and then other people like Swedish kind of massage. So it's just a different experience with the same sensory opening.
I think too, like when you talk about fantasies and stuff, or maybe what people watch in terms of porn, I think like a huge part of going back to like 50 Shades of Grey, like that book was very like tantalizing and it was curious because it was maybe new and not as mainstream as those books are today. But I think too, when somebody is reading about that or like thinking about a fantasy can, in my opinion, can also just stay as a fantasy. Like it doesn't always have to transfer in the bedroom. Does that make sense? Like I might like reading about this or like watching it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm comfortable also participating in that. Right?
Totally.
Okay.
It totally makes sense because your erotic imagination is just hungry. And so it might eat a lot of things that you don't necessarily want to cook for your partner in person. And that's fine. Right?
That
it
was
can eat
really
what it wants.
deep.
You've been dropping
I know. Where did that
bombs
go?
today.
Yeah. Where did that come from? Today's my day.
That down.
I love that.
The next book.
She was like, and check that one off.
So one of the things, as a lot of the people who listen to our podcast are couples, and we often talk about communication and desire, and how one partner tends to be more into it than the other. But there's another category that we don't ever talk about, and we've never talked about, which is the idea of swinging, swapping or threesomes or polyamory. And this is something that we've never personally as a couple on this podcast ever gone down. But I know that is a fantasy for a lot of people. The ability to either participate or watch their partner. How does that that come up? Like, how do you have that conversation? Because that is an entirely different animal than I'd like it a little bit rougher, or I'd like it in a different way in the bedroom. That's bringing somebody else outside of your, matrimonial. This is not something you talk about at the altar. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do. But also, are you good if we fuck other people later?
Right? Like, yeah.
Real quick.
It's not something when you do your pre-marriage counseling that the counselor asks you, are you into having sex with other people?
How do you bring that up? How do you respectfully bring that up?
Yeah, I think definitely bring it up in a non-sexy but intimate time. So when you have privacy, and it could be a check-in about fantasies, desires, is there anything you've been thinking about? Is there something you're curious about? And, feel free to use me. Be like, I heard Luna talking about swinging. What do you think about that? Is it weird for you? Like, what have you heard about it? And I think that a lot of times people focus on there's more bodies. Awesome. So there's all this hotness of more body, but there's more emotions, there's more desires, there's more health considerations to navigate. And so the fantasy, you can share the fantasy, but taking it into reality is going to require conversations about what your form of non-monogamy actually looks like. And there's so many versions, right? You can start very closed, maybe same room sex, or even webcamming with other people, because if it's about a voyeurism and exhibitionism, you can do that pretty safely without other people really being in your bedroom. If it's about something that's more about, I want to have a same-sex experience, I want to experience another gender, I want to experience what that feels like, that might mean you're doing that on your own. Are you doing it with your partner? So there's lots of guidance around what are the questions you should be asking. But the starting question is kind of, what's your motivation behind this? What's your intention? What do you want out of it other than just another body? Do you want to feel connection in a specific way, a specific activity? What are some of the rules? Maybe you're okay seeing your partner have sex with someone, but you'd be freaked out if they kissed and cuddled that other person.
Right, boundaries. Okay. Yes. That is huge. Like, for me, I find I know a lot of women are this way as well. Like, kissing is such a personal thing. Like, I think that would actually bother me more than the actual deed.
Brittany and I have talked about it. I don't know why. Brittany and I have talked about it numerous times, and not that we are going down this avenue or pursued this avenue, but we certainly have these conversations ongoingly. And for me, it would almost crush me to see Brittany go down on someone versus have sex with someone. For me, oral sex is so much more intimate than sex is, because you're pleasuring that person and your intention is to pleasure that person.
And it's not simultaneous.
It's not a simultaneous, you're not getting the pleasure, you're pleasuring. And for me, it's that's a hard stop. No. What I'm really interested in, Luna, is if you do have this conversation and you do go down this path, I think I know where this might end up going, but what happens if one partner is like, yeah, we did it and I don't like it, and the other partner's like, we did it and I loved it? How do you navigate that?
Yeah, that's a tough one, because some people can feel like then they're in a situation of asking permission to keep doing something. And so that feels like an imbalance of power, that your discomfort means that we can't do this thing that was satisfying for both of us at one time.
Right.
And so sometimes it's about asking the person, what can I do to support you if we want to continue doing this? Like, what do you need? Do you need more openness? Do you need to know when it's happening? Do you need to be there, but in a non-participating way? Is there another way we can fulfill this fantasy? You talked about kind of the vulnerability, the intimacy. Maybe there's another way to get that out of something else. And because it can breed resentment, it can breed frustration, it can breed unfulfillment. And I think sometimes it's easy to feel selfish about, we got to do the thing, it was so exciting, and now you want to take it away. But we're supporting a unit, we're supporting a couple, a partnership. And so what does that partnership need for both people to be fulfilled, but maybe not 100%. I think that's kind of unrealistic to expect that, you're getting 100% of your needs met with another person.
I think it also, at the forefront, Ryan said, the foundation of everything is communication. So in my opinion, if you are going to be introducing something new, especially people, you hit the nail on the head, there's bodies, but there's so many emotions that come with that. I think if you value your relationship with your partner, you really owe it to them to have a pre-conversation communication of, what are my expectations? What are the possible outcomes of this? Because if you aren't prepared maybe for those conversations afterwards, that's where the resentment comes from. So to have like, okay, possible scenario, what if we come out of this, I love it, you hate it, what do we do? And to have like hold each other accountable, and like, are we just going to be like, let's hope that doesn't happen, or are we making a plan? Like that's so important in everything that you do, so you don't run into those situations and you don't have that resentment.
I totally agree. I had to say to my partner when we talked about non-monogamy that, it's probably likely I'm going to get jealous, and I just want space to be able to have that emotion and then talk about it. I just want to be heard. Like I don't need to make any decisions. Jealousy is a normal emotion, feeling insecure, and it's often not the thing that you're reacting to. It's usually a feeling of insecurity or like a lack of safety underneath it.
Now, as a professional, at what point in time do you think that, or is there, I guess there's not really a way that you can just blanket this, but is there a period of time where you go from a conversation to maybe bringing in an expert to navigate or bridge that gap? Is that something you would recommend? Because I know for a lot, some of it would be like simple, like I want to be tied up. Okay, well, let's try that. But if we're talking swingers, if we're talking poly, if we're talking swapping, these are big, big life decisions that have massive potential impacts. When do you bring in a professional to help navigate or bridge that gap?
Yeah, I think if you have strong communication around this kind of stuff, which very few people do. I mean, most of us have learned what we've learned. We haven't learned sex ed skills around desire, communication, rejection, all that kind of stuff. And so the sooner that you can bring someone in to help navigate what might be the potential landmines. So you might have a history of feeling cheated on or feeling rejected or whatever these things that already exist. And having someone come in to say, okay, here are some ways to navigate that. Here are some tools, here's some skills, here are some practices that you can integrate so that your communication, your confidence, your creativity in the way that you do this is going to actually meet you and where you're at. Like it's easy to read a blog and get some tips. And if you feel good about that, then try, and you can always experiment and fine tune. But the couples that usually come to me are pretty early on. Like they just talked about a threesome fantasy, some feels came up as well as the hotness, and they want to figure out how to safely take it into reality and protect their relationship.
Right. I can also see that coming as like an additional insecurity, because so your partner has now been like, hey, I'm into this. And now they're also like, now we have to share this with a total other stranger. Like that's a lot. Like that's a lot of pressure to put on somebody. So I can also see like bringing in a professional maybe after the first or second time to help you kind of figure out where to go, because like it's just a lot to throw on your partner, right? Like that's a lot of information.
Now I know that you are, so while you're talking about this, my first thing is like, okay, well, what do we know is totally different than what we've done that immediately had a bad impact, and now we have to deal with the impact of it? And I know that you're an anal sex expert as well.
Yes.
And
don't tell my mom.
and anal sex is one of those things that couples talk about. They often try, but they didn't know the stages and the prep to get to where they go from 0 to 100. And then one partner loved it. The other partner hated it. And now it's like, I want that more. And the other person's like, not a chance. I was at a trade show, and this is where I want to go with the conversation. I was at a trade show and I learned more about anal sex in 5 minutes with an anal sex expert than I knew in 39 years of doing it. And as soon as they were done talking, I'm like, I fucked this up.
And like, hold on, also came home with like 45 anal plugs that were like rainbow colors. I'm like, what the fuck are these? Like, what are you doing with these? He's like, just listen. I'm like, nah, I'm not ready for this.
I owned it. I fucked up. I went right to 100%. And the experience wasn't enjoyable. So can we just have a quick, because there's people on this podcast, I can guarantee you, that tried it, hated it, and now they've given up on the idea.
Yeah.
How do we go back to that conversation? Because I think how we do this, when you start to understand the structure of it, it's not 0 to 90. 0 to 90 is where you make a lot of mistakes.
You nailed it. And I think it's so beautiful that you were able to be like, okay, I see where I went wrong. Because there's definitely people who are resistant, who just want to tell their partner, keep relaxing, do this.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think most people get anal wrong. It's more of a poke and stick it in. And that's just not how the anus works. So, you want to, right? It's like, hello. And then just like, come right in, keep your shoes on. That's fine. I think that most people think that spit is lube, and spit is not lube. You cannot spit on it and then stick a penis in a butt or fingers or a dildo. The anus isn't self-lubricating like the vagina. So we have to add really good quality lube, and most good quality lube is not bought, unfortunately, at your drugstore. So you got to go online, go to the sex shops, get like lube that's made for anal sex. It's going to be thicker, longer lasting.
It's not bought, it's made, and you have to like make it at home. I was like, what the fuck?
You have to like churn butter. Yeah. You know,
There's a colonial woman churning butter on a plane.
Yeah. Exactly.
I think she's making lube.
For anal.
Anyway.
And then I think people are not seducing the butt. They are not taking the time to play with all of the nerve endings that exist outside the butt. So they just want to get inside. And, you know, eating ass, massaging the anus, doing other things that bring the body full body arousal is going to relax the nervous system and open up the butthole. Otherwise, your brain is like, let's do anal. And your butt is like, not today. Not today. You know, we're not doing this. So I think taking time, like it's not, I don't think anal's a quickie activity. There's no such thing as surprise anal. You know, it's just not a thing.
Pokeroo does not exist. You need a lot of arousal.
There. Yeah, pokeroo is not invited to anal.
No, thank you. That's gonna be the title of this episode. Pokeroo is not invited to anal. Okay, that's
it's
perfect.
A good
Done.
Yeah.
Done. Yeah. So for me, this is what I had discovered. There was a kit. There was an anal kit, and there was stages of anal play that you got to well before you actually ever penetrated the anus. And there's different products that you can offer. There's different lengths and widths, and it really is a buildup, correct?
Yes. If you are having someone go in your butt, they should not be the first thing in your butt. So put your finger up there in the shower, stick a finger in when you're masturbating. Butt plugs are great. Like a butt plug no bigger than your thumb is probably what you can use to train your anus, because the anus is with lube. Absolutely. No spit. You know, it's like if, you know, when people spit on the anus, it's like, you know, your lips are chapped and you lick them instead of using chapstick, right?
Idiots.
It's not good. Yeah, they're idiots. So you want to lose like small butt plugs, super small. And the anus is muscle and tissue. So we're trying to get the muscle used to opening. So think about any other muscle you exercise. It needs time to be able to stretch.
It makes a lot of sense. And it's funny because I think everybody like thinks about anal and then they just think about all of like the rough porn. And then you're like, why is it gaping? That doesn't happen. Like, what is happening? And like, just like we talked about like BDSM, like it's such a blanket term. Like, oh, I want to be spanked. Okay. Where, how hard? Like, I want to do anal. Like what part of you, and like, how do we ease into that? It's just, nobody's educated enough on these terms that everyone just makes these decisions off of misinformation. Like porn is not educational, and if you're really looking at doing something and learning about something, don't go to porn.
No, and everyone has a butthole, and so you know the male G-spot is in the butt. And yet we always default to, okay, the person with the vulva is going to be the receiver. Again, there's a lot of men have internalized homophobia. So they worry that if they play with their butt, it's going to say something about their sexual orientation. But the anus just has pleasure nerve endings. It's greedy on everybody's body. And some people like it stimulated and some people don't.
I love that.
But it does sound like a commitment to it starts with a conversation and then it breaks into a commitment to evolve into. I think anal sex, unlike traditional sex, the first time sucks. Like traditional sex, my first time sucked. Sorry to the person who had it with me. I know it sucked because
wasn't me, just FYI.
I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what I was supposed to be feeling. I didn't know how to go about it. There was no lubricant in it. And when you think of it as a woman, so many of the conversations is breaking the what's the term? It's been a long time.
Oh, the orgasm gap? Is that it?
Pop the cherry.
Oh, the cherry.
Like the actual tearage of, I don't even know what that part's
hymen.
called. The hymen. The tearing of the hymen. And it's a painful experience. But because the vagina is designed for the penis, it's something that you get to quicker, right? You can figure it out quicker. Where with anal sex, it's like it hurts. My understanding of it is it hurts, and you don't want to go back to it. And because it doesn't have the natural lubricants, and because it doesn't have those things, it's like, I tried it, we did it, move on. But what I'm really hearing is it starts with a conversation to exactly what Brittany was saying. Like, why do you want to do this? Here's what you're looking for, and blah, 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 blah. Go down that path. So any one of these things starts with communication, understands the needs, wants, desires of the other partner, and then kind of starts to game plan it from there. But I see a huge opportunity for people to bring in someone like yourself and navigate this, because it's not an easy conversation for people.
Luna,
it's not easy. We've never learned, we didn't get the skills. And so everyone feels like they're worried about being bad or good at sex. But sexually confident people, we don't worry about that. I worry about, are you having the pleasure you want to have? Am I having the pleasure I want to have? That might look different. So how do we negotiate that in a shared pleasure space?
Can you just tell our community and our listeners, like, what kind of things are you offering right now? Like, if somebody wants more information about this, like, are you offering courses? Are there workshops?
Yeah, I have a seducing the butt and an eat booty like a boss class, and a prostate class on my on-demand class.
Love it.
So people can take them anytime. They just head to my website, and I have some live classes coming up about butt stuff. It's Masturbation May, so there's lots of things that people want to do in this anal training. Get some anal dilators or butt plugs. That's also part of masturbation. So a couple of classes coming up around that too that are live.
Perfect.
And how do they reach you, Luna?
Link your socials.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Luna Matatas. That's also my TikTok and Twitter. And my website is Luna Matatas, like Hakuna Matatas. So you'll find me.
Perfect. Thank you so much. This was so refreshing.
Not a conversation we get to have very frequently, and I'm glad we had it.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was great, and I hope people listening really have the opportunity to just think differently, like let go of some of that shame and make room for pleasure that might be slower. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Luna.
We'll
have yourself
soon.
a wonderful day.
Yeah, you too.
And we will be connecting soon, I guarantee you.
Okay, amazing. It was so great to meet you. That was an awesome conversation. Thank you.
Awesome.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Bye.
Okay.
Aside from my soul.